I'm Jeff Kauser from Indianapolis, Indiana. Today is May the 20th, 2014. I have receipt of notification that the President of the United States received on April the 18th, nearly a month ago, a document that I sent him outlining the crime and demanding enforcement against forced human circumcision. To date, I have received nothing in response from him, and I am aware of no action that he has taken to stop this criminal activity. Following are the details of the document that I sent. From the School of Humanity, intacthumanity.org, author Ammon Paternoster. Universal Declaration of Demand for Law Enforcement and ABC Solution on the Global Systematized Human Abuse of Forced Circumcision on Children and Adults, aka Forced Medically Not Warranted Circumcision, Brit Milah, Routine Infant Circumcision, Sunat, Forced Circumcision on Male, Female, and Intersex Humans, Forced Human Genital Mutilation. Declared in the United States of America based on a Federal Child Abuse and Treatment Act, CAPTA, 42 USCA paragraph 5106G, 2010, Public Law 111-320. B. U.S. Constitution, 14th Amendment, Section 1, Equal Protection Clause. C. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1, Executive Power, and Section 3, Clause 5 of the Constitution, Take Care Clause. D. Human Rights Declaration, United Nations Convention on Rights of the Child. Addressed to Barack Obama, President of the United States of America, on March 20th, 2014. Preamble, Section 1. The act of forced circumcision on humans of any age and gender not only violates the person's right of psycho and physiological integrity, but also the very foundation of human existence, the law of creation. And such act violates both the spirit and letter of the principle of democracy and its concept of the rule of law, and thus any such act violates the spirit and letter of the United States Constitution, statutory law, and the Universal Human Rights Declaration, all of which are based on the law of creation, the very foundation of true democratic nation, of every true democratic nation, whereas any form of forced circumcision on humans of any age and gender is outlawed in every true democratic jurisdiction. Thus also in the United States of America, regardless by who, on whom, and for whatever reason inflicted. The President of the United States of America and his government are fully aware of the national yet global systematized perpetration of medically not warranted circumcision, aka routine child circumcision, aka forced human circumcision, perpetrated also on millions of male children throughout the United States of America. We, and again, as we have done so repeatedly in the past, specifically point out the inarguable fact that any form of forced circumcision on humans of any age and gender constitutes the criminal act of infliction of non-accidental injury inflicted absent consent of the person this act is perpetrated upon. And herein inform the President and his government again of the inarguable fact that any such act is outlawed under democratic rule of law in any true democratic jurisdiction, regardless by who, on whom, and why inflicted. Section 2. If we know better, we are able to do better. During times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes an evolutionary act. Forced circumcision on human is a blasphemy, is an act of blasphemy, an act against Creator and creation. Forced circumcision on humans is a subhuman act, a crime against humanity. Forced circumcision on humans has no right of existence. The prime cause of systematized perpetration of forced circumcision is systemic indoctrination from childhood on. Only because of this systemic indoctrination of deceitful arguments, people are able to do this subhuman act. The only way to free humanity of forced circumcision is to eliminate the prime cause, the universal deceit. Telling the truth, full spectrum information, enforcement of law by implementation of the Universal Declaration's ABC solution is the predominant educational factor, the key solution to end the systematized brainwash and thus to end and prevent the systematized perpetration of forced circumcision on humans altogether. Yes, in order to free humanity from suffering and from perpetrating this subhuman act, it is absolutely essential to inform the public that this systematized child abuse of removing the healthy foreskin, this infliction of preventable physical and psychological injury on the child, is primarily caused by systematized indoctrination from childhood on and is continuously caused by circulation of false, misleading information, fallacious arguments, lies, deception indoctrinated in various disguise. As a result of this continuous systematized brainwash, billions of humans still think, speak, and act as if forced circumcision of male children were normal behavior, socially adequate, humane, a parental right to decide, as if parents were to have the legal right to make their informed decision whether or not they wish to have their child genitally mutilated, as if it were a religious, traditional right, yet even duty to do so, as if MGM were legal, as if only FGM were outlawed, but boys were accorded no such legislative protection, as if the FGM law were constitutional, as if removing the foreskin were relative to HIV prevention, as if cutting the healthy prepuce were to have any form of health benefit. Whereas a certain part of humanity even claims that to modify the child's healthy penis, thus to inflict non-accidental injury on the male child's healthy genital, were in the best interests of the child's well-being. And there is another certain part of humanity that even claims to have to genitally mutilate male children because God commanded it. A claim that is, of course, is no less blasphemy, perverse, all in all subhuman, than the act of forced circumcision and the sucking of the infant's penis. The only way to end and prevent this systematized child abuse is to eliminate its prime cause, namely, to eliminate this systematized brainwash from childhood on. And the only way to do that is to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And the truth must be told regardless of the psychosymptomatic fact that from childhood on, indoctrinated minds and hearts refuse to hear the truth. Section 3. It is paramount that the government informs the public absolutely correct. Forced circumcision is countered by first exposing the falseness of its supposed connection to legality. Where this systematized brainwash from childhood on has many faces, people are deceived to think, speak, and act as if this obvious wrong were a legal act to do. This is why the truth must be told. Forced circumcision is outlawed. Forced circumcision on humans of any age and gender is principally outlawed under the law of creation. Thus infringes upon the guarantees of constitutional and statutory rights secured in any true democratic jurisdiction. Just as these rights are of course naturally secured by the Human Rights Declaration. If perpetrated on adults, this act constitutes the criminal act of assault. if perpetrated on children, this act constitutes the criminal act of child abuse as defined under U.S. federal law, Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act 42 U.S.C.A. paragraph 5106G, 2010, Public Law 111-320. I quote, "Child abuse is a criminal offense that involves the physical, emotional, or sexual mistreatment of or infliction of non-accidental injury to a child committed by a parent or another party if responsible for the child's welfare or not, either purposefully or due to neglect." Second quote, "Any recent act or failure to act on the part of a parent or caretaker or any other person which results in death, serious physical or emotional harm, sexual abuse or exploitation, or an act or failure to act which presents an imminent risk of serious harm." End quote. Number 1, the act of infliction of non-accidental injury by way of medically not warranted genital alteration, i.e. by the way of circumcision, excision, and infibulation, is being systematically perpetrated on male and female children throughout humanity. And this crime against humanity is also perpetrated within the United States of America. Number 2, the President and his government are fully aware of who the perpetrators of this systematized child abuse are. The government knows the time and place of perpetration, of the perpetrator's motivation, and of the prime cause that causes this motivation, and are also fully aware of the key solution, the ABC solution to end this systematized perpetration. 3, the act of forced circumcision, as is the perverse nature of infliction of preventable injury, always results in preventable physical and in numerous known cases in psychological injury, and has in numerous known cases even caused death. The President and his government are fully aware of these inarguable facts. Number 4, any such act infringes upon the guarantees of rights secured by U.S. federal and state law, both statutory and constitutional, and these guarantees of rights are further secured by the Human Rights Declaration. 5, any form of human genital mutilation is prohibited within the entire United States jurisdiction, and this without abridging the exercise of any rights guaranteed under the First Amendment to the Constitution or any other law. 6, the unique circumstances surrounding the act of forced circumcision on humans of any age and gender place it beyond the authority of any single state or local jurisdiction to decide whether or not to enforce the law on such act. 7, the fact that forced circumcision on humans of any age and gender is outlawed makes it clear that a parental right to giving consent on medically not warranted circumcision on children does not exist. B, a religious, cultural, traditional right of perpetrating forced circumcision does not exist. Number 8, the U.S. Constitution and its 14th Amendment, Section 1, Equal Protection Clause, guarantees every citizen of any age and gender equal protection. Number 9, the executive branch of government has the constitutional obligation to enforce the law on any form of forced human genital alteration, regardless by whom and why and on whom inflicted. Number 10, the President of the United States of America, as Chief Executive, has the constitutional obligation, in accordance with Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1 of the Constitution, and furthered by the declaration made in Article 2, Section 3, Clause 5 of the Constitution, to take care the laws are faithfully executed. Hereby, on this day, we the undersigned, in knowledge and fulfillment of our human right and duty to end and prevent human genital mutilation, in agreement with the Universal Declaration and its ABC solution, in order to ensure compliance with the principle of democracy and its concept of the rule of law and human rights declaration, which also is the foundation of the United States of America, demand for the well-being of creation and in it so naturally for the well-being of humanity, from Barack Obama, President of the United States of America, to govern within democracy's principle and concept of the rule of law, to exercise the executive power given to the office of the President of the United States of America in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1 of the Constitution, and furthered by the Declaration to take care the laws be faithfully executed, made in Article 2, Section 3, Clause 5, and so to immediately implement the Universal Declaration's ABC solution and have the law enforced on any form of forced male child circumcision. To have the law enforced on the very act that constitutes the criminal act of infliction of non-accidental injury on a child, the very act that constitutes physical child abuse and thus is outlawed under federal CAPTA law, regardless by whom and regardless for whatever reason this act is being perpetrated, and so to fulfill the government's constitutional duty to protect all children equally as guaranteed to every child of any age and gender by the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. To do so by way of implementation of the Universal Declaration's ABC solution. A. To inform the public any form of forced human circumcision is outlawed. B. To inform the public about amnesty. The law will not be enforced on any past such acts. C. To inform the public the law will be enforced on any forced human circumcision from now on. Signed, Amon Ronald Oberhollenzer Paternoster. Signed, Gabriel Ronald Oberhollenzer Paternoster. Signed, Jeffrey Leon Cowsert. Signed with all endorsees of this declaration. And I ask that all viewers please go to intacthumanity.org and endorse this declaration demanding law enforcement against this crime.